The alarm on my console screamed before I even opened my eyes. Red light filled the small cabin, and the floor shook under my boots as I stood up. I was Elias Voss, a young officer on the human flagship Horizon, and that morning was the last quiet morning I would ever know. I ran to the bridge. Officers shouted numbers, screens flashed with warnings. Outside the window, 3 alien warships floated in formation, blocking our path through the checkpoint that led to Council space. Their hulls were smooth and dark, shaped like blades, and they did not move an inch, as if daring us to come closer. Captain Nadia Cole stood at the center of the bridge, her hands folded behind her back. She was calm, but her eyes were sharp, watching every screen at once. "They are not letting us pass," said the communications officer, a young man named Ryan Hale. His voice shook slightly. "They say we have violated the border treaty." "We did nothing wrong," Nadia said. "We followed the exact path they gave us." I stepped closer to the main screen. A message was already loading, sent directly from the Galactic Council chamber. The Council was the governing body that ruled over hundreds of alien species across the galaxy. Humanity had only recently joined their assembly, hoping for peace and cooperation. That hope was about to end. The screen flickered. His skin was pale blue, his eyes narrow and cold. He was Councillor Threx, a senior member of the ruling body, known for his dislike of humans since the day we arrived at their doorstep. "Human vessel Horizon," he said, his voice deep and slow. "You are ordered to stop all movement. A formal charge has been filed against your species." Nadia's jaw tightened. "On what grounds?" "Aggression," Threx said simply. "Unpredictability. A pattern of behavior the Council can no longer ignore." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. We had heard rumors for weeks, whispers among diplomats that some Council members wanted humanity removed from core space entirely. I never believed it would happen this fast. "This is absurd," Nadia said. "We have kept every agreement. We have shared technology. We have fought beside your fleets when pirates attacked your colonies." "And that is exactly the problem," Threx said. "You fought too well. You adapted too quickly. Your ships changed tactics between battles faster than our engineers could study them. Your soldiers do not follow patterns we can predict. This makes many of us afraid." "Fear is not proof of danger," Nadia said. "No," Threx agreed, "but it is proof of the future, and the future frightens us." The transmission ended, and silence filled the bridge. I looked around at the faces of my crewmates. Some were angry, some were afraid. I felt something else, something colder, like the ground beneath us had shifted, and we had no idea where it would settle. Within hours, we received the official summons. Every human ship, every ambassador, every scientist working in Council territory was ordered to appear at the central chamber for a full hearing. I was assigned to accompany Nadia as part of the human delegation, standing quietly behind the diplomats as history unfolded in front of me. The Council chamber was massive, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid that had been transformed into a floating city. Thousands of alien delegates from different worlds filled the seats, their voices overlapping in 100 different languages, translated instantly through small devices in our ears. At the center of the chamber stood our lead ambassador, a tall woman named Grace Miller. She had served humanity for over a decade, negotiating trade deals and peace treaties with dozens of alien species. She stood straight, her expression unreadable, as the Council presented their case. One by one, alien representatives spoke. They showed recordings of human ships during training exercises, arguing that our maneuvers were too aggressive. They showed reports of human scientists improving weapon systems faster than expected. They even brought up small disagreements from years ago, stretching them into proof of a dangerous pattern. I watched Grace stand there, absorbing every accusation without a single word of protest. I wanted to shout, to argue back, to remind them of every time humans had helped instead of harmed. But this was not my place. I was only there to witness. Finally, after hours of debate, the head of the Council rose to speak. She was an ancient alien named Vesa Korin, respected across 1,000 worlds for her wisdom and fairness. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the entire chamber. "Humanity has shown great skill," she said. perhaps too great. In our long history, we have seen young species grow quickly and either become allies or become threats. We cannot risk which one humanity becomes. Grace finally spoke. So your solution is to punish us before we do anything wrong? Our solution, Vesa said, is to remove the risk before it becomes a danger none of us can control. The chamber fell silent as she delivered the verdict. Humanity was to be exiled from Council space. Every human ship, every colony, every citizen was to leave core territory within a set number of days and relocate to the Outer Rim, a distant, resource-poor region on the edge of the galaxy, far from the safety and support of Council law. I expected shouting. I expected protest. Instead, Grace simply nodded. "Understood," she said. That single word echoed through the chamber louder than any argument could have. The Council seemed almost confused by her calm response, as if they had expected tears or anger, not quiet acceptance. Later that night, back on the horizon, I asked Nadia why Grace had not fought harder. Because fighting would prove their point, Nadia said, staring out at the stars. They wanted to see fear or anger. Grace gave them silence instead. That silence will confuse them more than any argument ever could. I did not fully understand her words that night. It would take years before I saw the full truth behind them. The following weeks were a blur of packing, moving, and saying goodbye. Human colonies that had taken decades to build were dismantled or abandoned. Families who had never left Council space prepared for a journey into the unknown. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and farmers alike boarded transport ships, carrying whatever supplies they could manage. I remember standing at the viewport of the horizon, watching our home colony shrink into the distance. Children pressed their faces against the glass, waving at planets they would never see again. Older generations stood quietly, their eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and quiet determination. Nadia gathered the senior officers for one final briefing before the fleet moved out. "We are not being erased," she told us. "We are being relocated. There is a difference. The Outer Rim is empty of Council law, but it is not empty of opportunity. We will need to work harder than ever, but we will survive." I wanted to believe her, but the reports about the Outer Rim were terrifying. It was known as a lawless region, filled with pirate clans, abandoned mining stations, and hostile alien factions who had been pushed out of Council space themselves, for various reasons. Ships that traveled there rarely returned with good news. As we prepared to leave, I overheard a conversation between Grace and one of her advisors, a quiet man named Owen Blake, who had studied ancient galactic history for most of his life. "The Council thinks this is punishment," Owen said. "But history tells a different story. Every time a species was pushed to the edge of extinction, only the strongest patterns survived. The Council believes they are removing a threat. They may be creating one instead." Grace looked at him carefully. "Do you believe that, Owen?" "I believe humanity has never had a real reason to test its limits," he said. "Now we will." I did not know what to make of his words at the time. I only knew that our ships were leaving everything familiar behind, heading toward a region of space that no civilized force wanted to claim. The journey to the Outer Rim took months. Our fleet moved slowly, weighed down by transport ships filled with families, supplies, and salvaged equipment. Along the way, we passed abandoned outposts, drifting wreckage, and empty space stations left behind by other exiled or defeated species long before us. I spent much of the journey working alongside engineers, helping repair damaged systems on the older ships. It was during these long hours of labor that I began to understand the quiet strength hidden within our people. Nobody complained. Nobody gave up. Every problem was met with careful thought and steady hands. One evening, as I helped repair a damaged engine core, I met a woman named Claire Dunn, a former shipbuilder who had spent her life designing vessels for peaceful trade routes. Now she found herself modifying those same designs for survival in hostile territory. "Strange, isn't it?" she said, wiping grease from her hands. "A few months ago, I was building cargo ships. Now I am turning them into something that can defend itself. Do you think we will make it?" I asked her. She smiled faintly. "Humans always find a way, Elias. We just need a reason to try." Her words stayed with me as our fleet finally crossed the border into the Outer Rim. The moment we passed through, all council communication signals disappeared. We were truly alone, cut off from the civilization that had cast us aside. Nadia gathered the entire fleet for a final address before we scattered to find suitable locations for new colonies. Her voice echoed through every ship's intercom system. "This is where our story begins again," she said. "Not as guests in someone else's galaxy, but as builders of our own future. The Council believed Exile would break us. Instead, it has given us something far more valuable. It has given us room to grow, without anyone watching over our shoulder." I stood on the observation deck, staring out at the endless darkness of unexplored space, and felt something shift within me. Fear was still there, but beneath it, a quiet fire had begun to burn. We had been cast out, yes, but for the first time since joining the galactic community, we were free to become whatever we chose to be. None of us could have imagined just how much that freedom would change everything, not only for humanity, but for the entire galaxy watching from a distance, waiting to see if we would fade away or rise into something they never expected. The first months in the Outer Rim tested every ounce of strength we had. Our fleet split into smaller groups, each searching for a stable location to build a new home. My group was assigned to a rocky, mineral-rich planet named Halden's Reach, named after the scout pilot who first discovered it. The planet was harsh, with thin air and violent storms that swept across its surface without warning. But it had one advantage the Council never expected us to find so quickly: rich deposits of rare metals essential for advanced technology. Nadia led the construction of our first settlement, a network of underground shelters connected by reinforced tunnels. Every day brought new challenges: equipment failures, supply shortages, the constant threat of raiders who patrolled the region, searching for weak, isolated groups to exploit. I worked closely with Claire and Owen during this period, helping design defense systems using whatever materials we could gather. It was slow, difficult work, but with each passing week, our settlement grew stronger. One evening, as I reviewed damage reports from a recent storm, Owen approached me with a thoughtful expression. "Do you know why the Outer Rim was abandoned by the Council in the first place?" he asked. "I assumed it was because of the pirates," I said. "Partly," he said, "but mostly because it lacked easy resources. The Council favors expansion into safe, resource-rich systems. They never bothered mapping half of this region properly, which means there could be discoveries out here that no one else knows about." His words planted a seed of curiosity that would shape the following years of our survival. If the Council had truly abandoned this region without fully exploring it, there was no telling what secrets remained hidden beneath its rugged surface. As our settlement stabilized, Nadia authorized small scouting missions to map nearby systems. I volunteered for one of these missions, eager to see more of the region we now called home. Alongside a young pilot named Ethan Cross and a skilled scanner technician named Sophie Turner, I boarded a modified transport ship and set off into uncharted space. Our first discovery was a cluster of abandoned mining stations, stripped of valuable resources, but still structurally intact. Ethan guided our ship carefully through the debris field surrounding the stations, avoiding sharp fragments of broken metal. "These stations look ancient," Sophie said, studying her scanner readings. "Older than anything the Council currently uses." "Which means they were built before the Council expanded this far," Ethan added. "Maybe even before the Council existed in its current form." We salvaged what we could from the stations, bringing back valuable equipment that would later help expand our settlement's defenses and living quarters. But it was during our third scouting mission that we made a discovery that would change everything. While mapping a distant asteroid field, Sophie's scanners picked up an unusual energy reading buried deep within one of the larger asteroids. The signature was unlike anything we had encountered before, faint but steady, almost as if something inside the asteroid was still active after countless years of silence. "It could be an old power core," Ethan suggested. "Or something far more significant," Sophie said, her eyes wide with curiosity. We reported our findings to Nadia immediately. She authorized a careful excavation mission, sending a team of engineers alongside a small security escort to investigate further. I was assigned to accompany the team, eager to uncover whatever secret lay hidden within that ancient asteroid. None of us realized at the time that this discovery would set humanity on a path far beyond simple survival, a path that would eventually make the entire galaxy take notice of what we had built in the shadows of our exile. The excavation took weeks. Engineers carefully cut through layers of rock and metal, following the faint energy signature deeper into the asteroid's core. I stood alongside Claire as the final barrier was removed, revealing a massive chamber hidden within the ancient rock. Inside, resting silently in the darkness, was the outline of a colossal vessel unlike anything humanity had ever built or seen before. Its hull was covered in strange markings, a language none of our translators could immediately identify. Dust and time had worn its surface, but its structure remained remarkably intact. "This is not Council technology," Owen said quietly, running his hand along the cold metal surface. "This predates everything we know about galactic history." I felt a mixture of excitement and unease as we stood before the ancient warship, unsure whether we had uncovered a gift or a burden far greater than we were prepared to handle. Little did we know, this discovery would soon test not only our engineering skills, but the very values that defined who we wanted to become as a people rebuilding themselves from exile. The debate over the ancient warship lasted for days. Nadia called for a full council of our settlement leaders, gathering engineers, scientists, and military officers into a single meeting hall carved from the rock of Halden's Reach. "This vessel could change everything," said a senior engineer named Marcus Hale, pointing toward diagrams displayed on the wall. "Its power core alone contains energy readings far beyond anything we currently use. If we can safely reactivate it, our defense capabilities would increase beyond anything the pirates or hostile factions in this region could match." "And if we cannot control it safely?" asked Grace, who had traveled from a neighboring settlement to join the discussion. "We know nothing about who built this ship or why it was hidden away in the first place." Owen stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "From what I have studied of ancient galactic records, there were several advanced civilizations that existed long before the Council rose to power. Some vanished due to conflict. Others simply chose to disappear, leaving behind fragments of their knowledge scattered across forgotten systems. This ship may be one of those fragments." "That does not answer the question of safety," Grace pressed. Nadia raised a hand, silencing the growing debate. "We did not choose exile. The Council forced this path upon us. If we are to survive out here, we cannot afford to ignore opportunities simply because they carry risk. We will proceed carefully, step by step, with full transparency among our engineering teams." The decision was made. Over the following months, our best engineers worked tirelessly to understand the ancient technology hidden within the warship. Claire led much of the effort, studying the strange markings alongside Owen, slowly piecing together fragments of an ancient language through careful comparison with older Council archives we had managed to preserve. I spent countless hours assisting with power calibration, learning alongside seasoned engineers as we slowly brought sections of the ship back to life. Each small success, a flickering light, a stabilized power reading, felt like a victory against the isolation that had defined our exile. One evening, after months of steady progress, Claire called an emergency meeting. Her voice carried unmistakable excitement, mixed with careful caution. "We have successfully stabilized the primary power core," she announced. "The ship is ready for a controlled activation sequence." The room fell into tense silence. Nadia looked around at the gathered engineers and officers before finally nodding. "Proceed," she said. The activation sequence began slowly, layers of dormant systems awakening one by one. Lights flickered across the ship's interior, illuminating corridors that had remained dark for countless years. Then, with a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath our feet, the ship's massive core roared to life. I stood beside Claire, watching monitors display power readings far beyond anything we had previously recorded. The ship, now fully active, revealed capabilities that far exceeded anything Council technology had ever produced. Advanced shielding systems, powerful propulsion cores, and weapon systems capable of neutralizing threats with remarkable precision, all contained within a single vessel buried and forgotten within our new home. "This changes everything," Marcus said, his voice filled with quiet awe. Nadia studied the readings carefully before turning to address the room. "This ship will not be used for aggression," she said firmly. "It will serve as a symbol of our resilience, a foundation for rebuilding what the Council attempted to take from us. We will use its strength to protect our people, to secure our settlements, and to ensure that humanity never again stands defenseless before those who fear our potential." Word of the ancient warship spread quickly throughout our scattered settlements across the Outer Rim. For the first time since our exile began, a wave of genuine hope spread among our people. We were no longer simply surviving in the shadows of galactic society. We were beginning to build something entirely our own. Over the following months, engineers studied the ship extensively, using its advanced technology to improve our existing defense systems and infrastructure. Smaller settlements that had struggled to survive independently began reaching out for cooperation, forming alliances built on shared resources and mutual protection. I traveled alongside Nadia and a small diplomatic team to several of these settlements, helping negotiate agreements that would unite our scattered population into a more organized coalition. It was during these travels that I met Lucy Grant, a skilled negotiator who had spent years mediating disputes between rival settlements before humanity's exile even began. "Unity was always our greatest challenge," Lucy told me one evening as we traveled between settlements. "Even before exile, humans struggled to fully cooperate across different regions. Perhaps this shared hardship will finally teach us the value of standing together." Her words proved prophetic. Within a year, dozens of previously isolated human settlements had united under a shared coalition, pooling resources, knowledge, and defense capabilities. The ancient warship, now fully understood and carefully maintained, served as both a literal and symbolic anchor for this growing alliance. As our coalition strengthened, we inevitably attracted attention from the various factions already established within the Outer Rim. Pirate clans, who had long treated this region as their personal hunting ground, soon realized that human settlements were no longer easy targets. The first major confrontation came when a notorious pirate leader named Draven Voss, no relation to myself despite the shared surname, attempted to raid one of our smaller mining outposts. Confident in his usual tactics, Draven led a fleet of modified raider ships toward what he believed would be an easy conquest. Instead, his fleet found itself facing a coordinated defense, unlike anything they had encountered from human settlements before. Advanced shielding technology repelled their initial assault, while precise, calculated countermeasures disabled several of his ships without unnecessary destruction. Draven, recognizing the shifting balance of power, chose to retreat rather than risk further losses. News of this failed raid spread quickly throughout the Outer Rim's criminal networks. For the first time, human settlements were no longer viewed as vulnerable exiles, but as a rising force capable of defending their territory with remarkable skill and discipline. Nadia used this growing reputation wisely. Rather than seeking further conflict, she extended offers of trade and cooperation to smaller, less hostile factions within the region, including displaced alien groups who had also been pushed to the fringes of galactic society for various reasons. One such group, a peaceful trading collective known as the Yulen, approached our coalition, seeking protection in exchange for valuable trade resources they had access to. I was present during the initial negotiations, observing as Nadia carefully built trust with representatives who had long been wary of outsiders due to previous exploitation by pirate factions. "We do not seek to control this region," Nadia explained to the Yulen delegation. "We seek to build a coalition capable of ensuring safety and prosperity for all who wish to cooperate peacefully." The Yulen representative, a quiet, thoughtful being named Philo Rendrick, studied Nadia carefully before responding. "Humanity's reputation among the Council paints a very different picture than what we witness here. The Council fears what they do not understand," Nadia replied. "We simply wish to build a future where fear is replaced by mutual respect." This philosophy became the foundation of our expanding coalition. Over the following years, more displaced groups, alien and human alike, joined our growing alliance, drawn not by force, but by the promise of stability and fair cooperation within a region long defined by chaos and exploitation. As our influence expanded, so too did the whispers that eventually made their way back to Council space. Traders who occasionally crossed paths with our coalition carried stories of a rapidly growing human-led alliance thriving within the Outer Rim, an alliance equipped with technology and discipline far beyond what anyone expected from an exiled, resource-poor population. I did not fully grasp the significance of these spreading rumors until Owen brought forward disturbing news gathered from a trader passing through our territory. "The Council is aware of our growth," Owen said during a private meeting with Nadia and senior coalition leaders. "Reports of our expanding coalition and rumors of advanced technology within our possession have reached the highest levels of Council leadership." Nadia's expression remained calm, though I could sense the weight of this news settling over the room. "What is their reaction?" she asked. "Concern," Owen replied. "Growing concern. Some Council members fear they made a mistake underestimating what humanity could accomplish once given the freedom to adapt without oversight." A heavy silence filled the room as the implications of this news settled among us. For years, we had focused solely on survival and steady growth within the isolated boundaries of the Outer Rim. Now, it seemed, the very civilization that had exiled us was beginning to recognize the consequences of their decision. Marcus broke the silence first. "Should we prepare for potential retaliation?" Nadia shook her head slowly. "We prepare for negotiation, not conflict. If the Council approaches us with hostility, we will respond with strength. But if they approach seeking understanding, we will offer the same respect we extend to any group willing to build genuine cooperation." Her words carried a quiet confidence that reassured many within the room, though I could sense an undercurrent of tension building beneath the surface of our coalition. We had spent years transforming exile into opportunity, but the greater question now loomed before us. How would the very civilization that cast us aside respond to the realization that their punishment had inadvertently created something far stronger than they ever anticipated? Months passed as our coalition continued strengthening its position within the Outer Rim, while whispers of our growing influence steadily made their way deeper into Council territory. It was during a routine supply exchange with a neutral trading post that we received the first direct sign that the Council could no longer ignore our presence. A heavily guarded diplomatic shuttle arrived, requesting formal communication with our coalition leadership. Nadia agreed to the meeting, though she ensured our defenses remained on high alert throughout the exchange. The Council delegation was led by a familiar face, Councillor Threx, the same official who had first announced humanity's exile years earlier. His expression, once filled with cold confidence, now carried a subtle hesitation as he addressed Nadia directly. "The Council has taken notice of your coalition's rapid growth," Threx said carefully. "Reports suggest capabilities that exceed what we anticipated from your exiled population." "We adapted to survive," Nadia replied simply, "just as any civilization would, given similar circumstances." Threx studied her carefully. "Some among the Council view this growth as a potential threat to regional stability." "And what does the Council propose?" Nadia asked. "A formal dialogue," Threx said, "to better understand your coalition's intentions moving forward." I stood quietly among the senior officers present during this exchange, watching as years of quiet resilience finally forced the very civilization that exiled us to reconsider their initial judgment. The Council, once so certain of humanity's inevitable decline, now found themselves seeking answers from the same people they had cast aside without hesitation. Nadia agreed to formal negotiations, though she made it clear that our coalition would engage as equals, not as subjects awaiting judgment. As the Council delegation departed, I could not help but reflect on how far we had come since that fateful day aboard the Horizon, when exile felt like the end of everything we had built. Instead, it had become the beginning of something far greater, a future shaped entirely by our own resilience, cooperation, and quiet determination to prove that being cast aside was never the same as being defeated. The formal negotiations between our coalition and the Galactic Council took place aboard a neutral station positioned along the border separating Council space from the Outer Rim. I accompanied Nadia as part of our official delegation, alongside Grace, Owen, and several senior officers who had helped shape our coalition since the earliest days of Exile. The Council sent a larger delegation this time, led once again by Councillor Threx, alongside several other representatives eager to understand the true extent of humanity's growth. Vesa Korin, the council leader who had originally delivered our exile verdict, also attended, her expression unreadable as she studied our delegation carefully. "It seems circumstances have changed considerably since our last formal meeting," Vesa said, opening the discussion with quiet acknowledgement. "Circumstances often do," Nadia replied evenly, "especially when a civilization is given the freedom to grow without constant oversight." Vesa studied her carefully. "The council once believed exile would limit your influence. It appears we were mistaken. Exile forced us to rely entirely on our own strength," Nadia said. "Perhaps that is a lesson the council should have considered more carefully before making such a decision." The negotiations continued for several days, covering topics ranging from trade agreements to regional security cooperation. The council, once dismissive of humanity's potential, now approached each discussion with visible caution, recognizing that our coalition held considerable influence over an entire region they had previously abandoned as worthless. During a private discussion between sessions, Threx approached me directly, his expression carrying a mixture of curiosity and quiet unease. "Your people have accomplished something remarkable," he admitted. "Something the council failed to predict." "We simply adapted," I replied, "just as any species would, given similar circumstances." "Perhaps," Threx said, "but few species adapt with such remarkable speed and unity." I said nothing further, allowing his words to settle into the quiet tension that now defined our relationship with the very civilization that once sought to erase us from galactic relevance. By the final day of negotiations, both parties reached a formal agreement recognizing our coalition as an independent, self-governing region within the Outer Rim. The Council extended trade partnerships and mutual defense agreements, no longer treating humanity as a subordinate species awaiting judgment, but as an equal partner capable of shaping the future of galactic relations. As we prepared to depart the negotiation station, Vesa approached Nadia one final time. "The Council underestimated your people," she admitted quietly. "A mistake we will not repeat." Nadia offered a calm, measured response. "Growth often comes from unexpected circumstances. Perhaps this experience will encourage the Council to reconsider how quickly they judge those they do not fully understand." Vesa nodded slowly, though her expression remained thoughtful as our delegation finally departed, leaving behind a council forced to reconsider everything they once believed about the species they had cast into exile. Years passed following our formal recognition as an independent coalition within the Outer Rim. What had once been a scattered, struggling population now stood as one of the most stable, self-sufficient regions across known galactic space. Former pirate clans had either been absorbed into peaceful cooperation or pushed entirely out of the region, unable to compete with our organized defense network. Displaced alien factions continued joining our coalition, drawn by the promise of fair treatment and genuine opportunity for growth. I often found myself reflecting on how drastically our circumstances had changed since that first day aboard the Horizon, when exile felt like an ending rather than a beginning. Nadia, now recognized as one of the most respected leaders across the Outer Rim, continued guiding our coalition with the same quiet determination that had defined her leadership from the very beginning. Claire's engineering achievements, built upon the ancient technology we had uncovered years earlier, transformed our settlements into thriving, advanced communities capable of rivaling even the most developed worlds within Council space. Owen's careful study of ancient galactic history continued uncovering valuable knowledge that further strengthened our coalition's understanding of the wider universe. Lucy's diplomatic efforts had successfully united dozens of previously isolated factions under a coalition built on mutual respect rather than fear or domination. Even Grace, who had once stood silently accepting humanity's exile verdict without protest, now served as our coalition's primary representative during ongoing discussions with Council leadership, ensuring our voice remained strong within galactic affairs. One quiet evening, as I stood upon the observation deck overlooking Halden's Reach, now a thriving hub of activity and innovation, Nadia joined me, watching the same stars that had once carried us into uncertain exile. Do you ever think about that day? I asked her, when the council first delivered their verdict. She smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of distant stars. Every day, she admitted. It reminds me how quickly fear can lead to decisions that shape history in ways no one expects. Do you think the council regrets their decision? I asked. Perhaps, she said, but regret matters little now. What matters is what we chose to build from the opportunity they unintentionally gave us. I looked out at the thriving settlement below, filled with laughter, innovation, and quiet resilience, a stark contrast to the fearful, uncertain exodus we had once endured. Humanity, once cast aside as a threat too dangerous to remain within council space, had transformed Exile into the foundation of an entirely new future. The Outer Rim, once dismissed as a lawless, resource-poor wasteland, now stood as one of the most influential regions across the galaxy, guided by a coalition built on resilience, cooperation, and quiet determination. As I stood there, watching the stars stretch endlessly before us, I understood something the Council had never truly grasped. Exile was never meant to be humanity's ending. It had simply given us the space needed to discover exactly what we were capable of becoming. And in that quiet realization, I finally understood the full weight of Nadia's words from all those years ago. We were not being erased. We were being given room to grow into something the galaxy could never have predicted, a future shaped entirely by our own hands, built from the very exile meant to hold us back.